Welcome to Lento English. Ready to level up your English? Here we learn through stories, slow, clear, and fun. Listen, relax, and enjoy the journey.
One introduction. A big economic event happened recently. China decided to stop buying all seafood from Japan. This was a sudden stop to important trade between the two countries. This action started a difficult time between Japan and China, two very large countries in Asia. This trade problem is serious. It shows how political words can quickly change economic relationships. Japan sells a lot of seafood to China. China is one of the biggest buyers of Japanese fish, scallops, and other products from the sea. This trade is worth many millions of dollars every year. When the ban began, many Japanese businesses became very worried. They lost an important market quickly. This ban is more than just a seafood problem. It is part of a larger disagreement. The relationship between Japan and China has become much worse in a short time. This disagreement involves money, but it is also deeply political. We need to understand why this happened. There are two main reasons that caused this sudden stop. One reason is related to political words. A new leader in Japan said things about Taiwan that made China very unhappy. This political statement quickly became a big problem between the two governments. The second reason is about water. Japan had a plan to release treated water from the Fukushima nuclear power plant. This plan happened months ago, but China used this old issue as a reason for the new, complete ban on seafood. China said it needed to monitor the water release more carefully. This lesson will look closely at this difficult situation. We will explore the political words that started the argument first. Then, we will look at the history of the water issue and how it was connected to the ban. We will see how this ban hurts fishermen and businesses in Japan. The problem is growing bigger than just seafood trade. The difficult time also stops many people from traveling. China told its citizens not to visit Japan, which hurts tourism. This lesson will explain the reasons from both Japan and China without choosing a side. We will look at the facts and the big impact of this disagreement on two important world economies. 2. The political words. The big problem between Japan and China began with political words, not just trade. Japan recently got a new prime minister. Her name is Sani Takaichi. She decided to speak about a very sensitive issue, Taiwan. She spoke during a meeting in the Japanese parliament. She made a statement about what Japan would do if Taiwan was attacked. She said that if China attacked Taiwan, the fighting might threaten Japan's own safety and survival. Because of this threat, she suggested that Japan might need to use its military force to protect itself. Her statement was considered very serious by many people. China heard the Prime Minister's words and became extremely unhappy. China saw her political statement as a direct threat. China quickly demanded that the Prime Minister take back what she had said. They asked for an official retraction of her remarks. However, Japan's government did not agree to apologize or retract the statement. Tokyo officially said that Prime Minister Takaichi's remarks were in line with the government's official position. Since Japan defended the statement, the diplomatic dispute grew deeper very quickly. No quick solution seemed possible at this time. China used strong measures to show its anger toward Japan. A Chinese diplomat in Japan and Chinese state media outlets began speaking harshly about Prime Minister Takechi. This was a wave of strong, negative responses aimed at her. Following this political argument, China made a major economic decision. China informed Japan that it would immediately stop all imports of Japanese seafood products. This sudden ban applied to all types of fish and seafood from Japan. China also took action against tourism. China advised its citizens not to travel to Japan. This travel boycott led to many mass cancellations of airplane tickets. This demonstrated how quickly a political disagreement could cause large economic troubles for both countries. The tension was so high that Japan had to warn its own citizens living in China. Japan told its people there to increase their safety measures. They were advised to be careful and avoid crowded places. This was a direct result of the strong words and diplomatic fighting used by officials in both nations. The argument about Taiwan and the Prime Minister's words started a difficult chain reaction that led directly to the new economic ban on seafood imports. 3. The water from Fukushima. The problem with seafood trade is complicated. It is not only about political words. It is also about the water from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. This issue is older than the recent political trouble. Many years ago, in the year 2011, a very big earthquake and tsunami hit Japan. This event caused serious damage to the nuclear power plant at Fukushima. Water was necessary to cool the damaged reactors. This cooling water became contaminated, meaning it contained radioactive material. Japan stored this water for many years. The amount of water was huge. Japan treated the water to remove most of the harmful substances. The government decided that the best way to deal with the water was to release it slowly into the Pacific Ocean. This plan began in the year 2023. When Japan announced this plan, many neighboring countries expressed fear. China was one of the most concerned nations. China said that the treated water was still dangerous. They worried about the safety of the ocean and the fish living there. Because of these worries, China had already put restrictions on Japanese seafood imports in 2023. They stopped buying fish from some parts of Japan. This caused problems for Japanese fishing companies. However, just a few months before the new total ban, the situation improved a little. China decided to ease some of these restrictions. They started importing seafood from most Japanese areas again. Almost 700 Japanese exporters wanted to start selling to China. China was a very big customer for Japanese fish, especially scallops and sea cucumbers. Then, the new political trouble started. The relationship between the two countries became very cold. Suddenly, China announced that it would stop buying all Japanese seafood. China gave a specific reason for this complete ban. They said they needed to monitor the water release from Fukushima more carefully. They claimed the ban was necessary to protect the health of their citizens. For many people, the ban seemed linked to the recent political problems mentioned in the last chapter. But officially, China used the ongoing issue of the Fukushima water as the reason to stop all seafood trade. This old environmental issue became the reason for a new economic problem. The situation showed how past events can be used in current disputes. The stop in trade was a painful blow for Japanese companies who had just started selling again. 4. Japan's fishing businesses suffer. China was a very important customer for Japan's fishing industry. Japanese businesses sold a large amount of seafood to Chinese buyers every year. This trade brought a lot of money to Japan. In fact, China was the largest overseas market for Japan's seafood. Before the trade stopped, China bought more than 1/5 of all the seafood Japan exported. Losing this market was a major and painful blow to many Japanese companies. Two specific products were extremely popular in China: scallops and sea cucumbers. China was the top international buyer of Japanese scallops. It was also a very important buyer of sea cucumbers. These businesses, which focused heavily on export, suddenly had nowhere to send their valuable products. This was not the first time Japan's seafood trade faced problems with China. Restrictions had first started in the year 2023. This happened after Japan decided to release treated water from the Fukushima nuclear plant. However, just a few months ago, there was hope. China had decided to make the ban smaller. They allowed Japanese companies to resume selling seafood from many areas. The ban was lifted for 37 out of Japan's 47 prefectures. This meant that many businesses saw a chance to start earning money again. Japanese companies quickly prepared to re-enter the Chinese market. They wanted to start shipping products as soon as possible. Nearly 700 Japanese companies applied to re-register their businesses for sales to China. They needed this official approval to begin exporting again. The Japanese Agriculture Minister, Norikazu Suzuki, shared this large number of applicants. However, the hope did not last long. The registration process was very slow. Out of the almost 700 companies that applied, only 3 had received approval before the political dispute became worse. Then China announced the full stop. All Japanese seafood imports were banned again. This decision caused big problems for the nearly 700 companies that were waiting to sell. Fishermen and seafood exporters faced immediate financial trouble. They had already invested money in preparing products for the Chinese market. They had large amounts of scallops, sea cucumbers, and other fish that needed to be sold quickly. If they could not sell these products, the food would spoil, and the companies would lose huge amounts of money. They needed to find new buyers quickly, but the Chinese market was so large that replacing it was extremely difficult. The ban put stress on Japan's economy beyond just the fishing boats. Companies that process the fish, companies that package the fish, and companies that transport the fish also suffered. The government of Japan understood that these businesses needed help. The political problem had turned into a serious financial crisis for thousands of people working in Japan's coastal towns and cities. 5. No more tourists. The disagreement between China and Japan quickly became bigger than just the trade of seafood. The political trouble started to affect travel and tourism. China advised its citizens not to visit Japan. This instruction was a travel boycott that began to hurt Japan's economy in a new way. Japan relies heavily on tourism. People visiting the country bring a lot of money. The tourism sector accounts for about 7% of Japan's total economy. This financial area has been an important reason for growth in recent years. Visitors from China are a very important part of this success. Official numbers show that people from mainland China and Hong Kong make up about 1/5 of all international arrivals in Japan. When China advised against travel, many people canceled their trips. This led to a large number of canceled plane tickets. The cancellations happened very fast. One expert estimated that about 500,000 tickets for flights to Japan were canceled. This large number showed the immediate effect of the travel boycott. To help the travelers, many airlines offered refunds. More than 10 Chinese airlines offered to give money back for tickets to Japan. These refund offers were valid for trips planned until December 31. This action by the airlines confirmed that the travel ban was a serious and long-term problem. The pressure was not only on individual travelers. Some large companies in China also followed the advice. For instance, staff at a big Chinese bank were informally told by their managers not to ask for trips to Japan. Requests for travel would not be approved for the time being. This signaled that the government wanted to limit all non-essential travel to Japan. The loss of Chinese tourists is a painful blow to Japan. First, the seafood ban hurt fishermen and exporters. Now the travel boycott is hurting hotels, shops, restaurants, and transport services across Japan. The economic trouble is affecting many different industries. This situation shows how quickly a political problem can become a major financial difficulty. The travel boycott added great pressure on Japan's economy, making the situation much more difficult than before. 6. Changes in daily life. The political problems quickly changed daily life for many people. Japan's government spoke to its citizens who lived in China. They told them to be very careful for their personal safety. People had to think about their actions every day. They were told to avoid places with many people. This warning showed that the relationship between the two countries was now very difficult and tense. Japanese people living abroad had to change their daily routines because of the rising tensions between the nations. The problems also stopped many good connections between the two countries. Scholars are people who study important things like history or science. Every year, scholars from both Japan and China meet to talk and share ideas. This year, the planned annual meeting was postponed. It was supposed to start soon in the city of Beijing. Postponing this important meeting meant that experts could not talk about issues that mattered to both countries. Sharing knowledge became much harder. It was not only big academic meetings that stopped. Smaller, friendly events were also canceled. One important event was planned to help friendship between the two nations. This event was scheduled for November 21st in the western Japanese city of Hiroshima. However, the event was canceled because of the high tensions and the diplomatic dispute. These cancellations showed that the problem was moving beyond just politics and trade. It was hurting cultural understanding. Culture also became a victim of the dispute. In China, many people enjoy Japanese films and animation. But the Chinese government suspended the showing of new Japanese movies that were coming soon. People who wanted to see these films could not. This was a direct stop of cultural sharing. When films and art cannot be shared easily, people understand less about each other, and the distance between the two nations grows larger. Japanese people who are famous in China also faced difficulties. These celebrities needed to be very careful about what they said in public. Some famous singers or actors felt pressure to show support for China publicly. They did this to avoid problems with their fans and their work. They often wrote messages saying they supported the idea of one China. This shows how the political fight made personal life complicated for these individuals who work across borders. The rising tensions hurt the normal, friendly connections between neighbors. When scholars, artists, and regular citizens cannot meet or share culture, the distance between the two countries grows bigger. The problem was no longer just about seafood or political words. It was about the daily life and friendship between millions of people in Japan and China. 7. How people feel. The disagreement started to feel very angry. Officials and state media in China used very strong words against Japan's prime minister. These strong words showed how unhappy China was with the political statements made by the leader. This atmosphere of tension grew quickly. Because of the harsh talk, Japan became worried about the safety of its citizens living or working in China. Japan's government told its people in China to be extra careful. They asked citizens to take more safety steps. They also advised people to stay away from crowded places where problems might start. This safety warning made it clear that the dispute was affecting regular life, not just big politics or trade. Japan's government quickly spoke up to defend its position. Tokyo said that the prime minister's words were correct. They explained that the statement matched the government's official view about the situation. By defending the words, Japan signaled that it would not take back the statement. This meant that a quick solution to the political problem was not likely to happen. The tension had a strong impact on cultural connections. Many events that helped people from both countries meet were canceled or postponed. For example, an annual meeting where scholars talked about important topics was delayed. Also, an event meant to promote friendship, which was planned for November, was completely canceled. The world of entertainment also felt the pressure. Japanese films that were scheduled to be shown in China were suspended. This meant that people in China could not see the new movies. Famous people, especially Japanese celebrities who are popular in China, felt they had to make choices. They needed to show that they supported China to avoid trouble from fans or officials. One famous Japanese singer named Ma Rai wrote a message on a social media site. She told her followers that China was like a second home to her. She added that her friends in China were like family. Most importantly, she wrote that she would always support the idea of one China. These actions showed the high level of emotional feeling during this time. In China, there was strong anger directed at the Japanese government's words. In Japan, there was concern about the safety of people and the future of business. The dispute moved from official offices to affect the daily choices and feelings of many thousands of regular people. The need for celebrities to publicly choose a side showed how deeply the political conflict had entered cultural life. Both sides were watching closely, making the situation difficult for everyone involved. 8. The future is not clear. This lesson has looked at a difficult time between two major Asian countries, Japan and China. The conflict began suddenly when political words caused a strong reaction. These words quickly led to a large economic problem. The main issue shows how politics, the economy, and history are closely linked together. The story began with new comments from Japan's prime minister about a nearby island. China strongly disagreed with these comments and asked Japan to change its official position. Because of this political fight, China stopped buying all seafood from Japan. This trade stop was also linked to old worries about treated water released from the Fukushima nuclear plant. China used the water issue as a reason to make the trade ban official. This shows that old problems can quickly become new reasons for conflict when politics are tense. Japan is feeling a serious economic impact. China was a very important buyer of Japanese seafood, including popular exports like scallops. Now, many Japanese fishing companies and exporters are suffering financially. Nearly 700 companies that wanted to sell their products to China are now unable to do so. These businesses are losing a lot of money. Also, the problem grew bigger than just seafood. China advised its citizens not to travel to Japan. This resulted in the cancellation of many plane tickets. Tourism is a large and important part of Japan's economy, and Chinese visitors are a big source of income. When visitors stop coming, the whole economy feels the pain. The conflict also affected friendships and culture. Meetings between scholars and friendship events were postponed or canceled. At this time, the political problem has no fast solution. Japan's government defends its position, and China remains firm in its demands. When neither side is willing to change its mind, the dispute lasts longer. The longer the argument continues, the worse the economic damage becomes for Japan. The future of the relationship between Japan and China is not clear. Both countries are very important to the global economy. They must find a way to communicate and solve their disagreements. If they cannot find a path forward, the economic and cultural connections built over many years will continue to suffer. The world is watching to see how these two powerful neighbors will try to make peace again.